Hey, good day, everybody. This is E. Marcel Purtute, and welcome to another edition of Sports Inquirer Show. We're broadcasting on April 24th, 2020 in Atlanta, Georgia. Hope all is well with you. And as we've been saying in our previous broadcasts, hope you are safe and sound and individually and your family and friends and associates and everyone in between during these times. We're going to only talk about one topic on today's show. Pretty straightforward. That's going to be recapping the first round of the NFL draft, which took place last night. But as always, if you want to follow everything that we're doing, head to the mothership, thesportsinquirer.net, premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You can also head to our social media platforms on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook also. Yeah, and all three, either one of those three. And you can search The Sports Inquirer, and that'll give us, you'll find our stuff there. You can also search Sports Inquirer, all one word, and that'll lead you to our links and to our content. And then finally, subscribe to us on YouTube and on SoundCloud under Sports Inquirer. I was going to just do a search, sports, and then INQUIRER. And you do a search, you'll see everything that we do. Please give some likes and subscriptions to our content. That really helps us out in many ways. And as I've often said on the show, if you subscribe to us, you'll get a link, or if you follow us on Twitter and Instagram and things like that, you'll get an update or a notice every time we do something new on the site. So that's really a good way. Every time we post something, whether it's an interview, a show like this, or if we do an article, you'll get a notice from your various platforms, whether it's your phone, your tablet, things in between, your laptop or your PC. If you go that old school, I guess really old school would be like a word processor or something like that. But anyway, if you want to find a way to follow everything that we're doing, that's the best way to do it. Yeah, so the draft itself, I was thinking about waiting on doing my recap until Monday after all of the rounds are done, because my thoughts on the NFL draft is it goes beyond just the first round. And we'll go down the line and talk about the quarterbacks and different moves that the teams made. But I'll say a few times throughout it, a team may have drafted a position and you said they really needed this, but they may get it in the second or third round today on the 24th, or maybe even the 4th through 7th round on the 25th. And we look back on it and I was like, okay, they didn't do it in the first round, but they got good value in the second or third round. So it's hard to give a grade right now. And look, I'm a sports content producer myself. So, and I'm literally watching FS1 Undisputed with Skip and Shannon and First Take, and I was watching Good Morning Football, NFL Network, and Get Up on ESPN. The good part about this is that, as I said, we've been going through this pandemic and staying at home and having our lives altered, some in minor ways and some in serious ways, whether it's employment or being able to, or financially, or just lifestyle, or people in our family members or colleagues being sick and starting to, and I'm not going to name names but you're starting to hear people that I know I've crossed paths with saying, yes, I had the coronavirus, and they're either recovering or they had to deal with some things, and now that they've recovered, they're starting to become public with it. And you're like, wow, I didn't even know. But the point is, the draft, the good part about it is that for at least for a few hours, and it'll continue tonight and into Saturday, we got a little bit of a distraction from it. And I will say this: I thought that ESPN and the people there did a very good job with the presentation of the draft, all things considered. I would say the NFL draft is like the Academy Awards or the Oscars of sports. We saw it similar to the Academy Awards when you see who's going to get Best Picture or Best Actor. You look at the fashion with the people wearing the gowns or the tuxedos. We always talk about the host and the monologues and the whole show itself, because it's kind of like a year-end culmination of what we saw in the movie theaters or at home and things like that. We see all of our favorite actors and actresses out in the public forum and we do the recaps. You have the fashion police and things like that. Very similar to the NFL draft, where we've been following these college football players for the past few years. All of our teams, we want to see who they pick. We have an objective view of, we saw this guy play. He's good. He's not going to be good. We also know about the teams and what they're looking for, and new coaches and new situations, or maybe some older tenured coaches, and trying to pick the right guy to save their job, and just all the drama that comes with it. And a big part of that is the live aspect of it, whether they were in New York City for all of those years from Radio City Music Hall and having a crowd there, to even the different hotels throughout New York City. And now they maybe at a big time where they've been at Philadelphia, Chicago, and then last year Nashville really blew it out the park with all the people there, all the way down Broadway, and the big stage and just the atmosphere and everything like that. We can't have any of that right now for all the reasons that we all know. So having to do it virtually, and really just, it looked like it was a big Skype conference. I thought that they went very well. I thought Roger Goodell did a good job with it. He's not. It's really tough on him. He's not a showman by any means, but he announced the pick. He was trying to get He was looking at the screen and trying to get the people to go crazy with the Zoom Zoom setup they had. It was a little bit awkward and things like that, but I thought he did a solid job. Just all things considered, I didn't see any disruptions as far as the technical side, which is very surprising, and that was very good. All the picks got in correctly. You're even able to see some of the players with their families, and we'll talk about kind of the setups of each of the guys as we go down the line with the picks. And so, individually, some guys had some good setups, some had some interesting looks. You got to see the coaches as well. We'll get to some coaches. You had the Cliff Kingsbury in his mansion in Arizona, to Jerry Jones, owner of the Cowboys, in his yacht, to guys like Dave Gettleman of the Giants, who was just in an empty office trying to put a mask on, and it looked so sad. And then other guys try to. So you see all the breakdowns of the backgrounds and what guys are trying to do. But I thought they did a very, very good job, all things considered, with what they've had to deal with as far as conducting a draft in an atmosphere that we all did not expect. But overall, I thought the draft, it went pretty much how you thought it would go. Joe Burrow going number 1 to the Bengals, no surprise there. He was the best player in college football last year. I know you as a quarterback, when you're looking at him, you like to have more than 1 year of starting. He did start 2 years. Junior year, or redshirt junior year, was okay. Last year, obviously, maybe the best single season for a quarterback in history of football, college football. Won every single award, undefeated season in the SEC National Championship, beating Oklahoma and Clemson in the postseason as well, 2 elite teams. I mean, the man did it all. And you consider the local ties. He's from Southeast Ohio, or South Ohio, Athens. He had the shirt on representing for his area, and that means a lot. And even if he wasn't he's a stud player. He's the best player in the draft as far as quarterback goes. But you add on to it him being from that region. Cincinnati, it's a tough destination for some people to go to. So he knows what he's walking into. It won't be intimidating. Now, the Bengals franchise, they have a lot of work to do. And we know for years, whether it's been the frugal cheapness of the ownership to just the setup not being the best, it's a very tough place to win. They have Zach Taylor there now, the new head coach. He's entering his second year. You're kind of seeing the reins of the Brown family loosening up a little bit, letting outside management, have a bigger impact on the team. So, as I said, Joe Burrow going to the Bengals was not much surprise. I like that pick. And Chase Young going to Washington, another local guy. He really is from the DMV area. So him going to Washington, smart pick there. He's physically the guy, maybe best pass rusher we've had coming to draft prospect wise since Clowney. The guy is, or Nick or Joey Bosa. I mean, Ohio State guys, they roll in. We'll get to just Ohio State's dominance top of the draft when we get to the number 3 pick. But it's a smart pick. He gives you everything you could want as far as the defensive end prospect. You just hope the motor is there for him. You have Dwayne Haskins there at quarterback. I think Tua may have been intriguing there, but overall, Dan Snyder has a relationship with Haskins, who's also from the DMV area, and it's just a tie there, and that's just the way things work. But I liked that pick and thought it was good. Jeff Udoka from Ohio State as well, cornerback for the Lions. I don't like taking cornerbacks so early in the top 5, and it's really hit or miss. I mean, I know Jalen Ramsey, he was drafted in top 5 with the Jaguars. He's had a solid career. But I just think that they could have gone, I would have gone maybe more defensive line. I would have gone maybe with the Derek Brown or even Andrew Thomas to help the offensive line, even Isaiah Simmons. Or maybe they tried to trade down and get maybe one of the quarterback-hungry teams to move up a little bit. But, man, I just don't know if... Now, cornerback play is important. But my theory is when you're in... My overarching thoughts when it comes to starting a team, and they have the quarterback in Stafford, so that eliminated that aspect. Quarterback is priority. And we see the league way it is right now. You have to have elite quarterback play to compete at championship level. From Mahomes to Tom Brady, even Lamar Jackson. The Ryan Tannehills with Tennessee last year getting to the championship game, that was a good run by the Titans, but that's more the exception to the rule. Look, the Brad Johnson and Trent Dilfers managing your way through a game is not over necessarily, but just the way the rules are and the way things have opened up, you have to have elite quarterback play. And Stafford, him being an elite quarterback, that's a big question. And he is on the other side of 30, even though we're seeing guys right now play at a high level into their 30s, some even into their 40s, arguably with Breeze and with Tom Brady. But I looked at Detroit, and when you want to have the guys closest to the ball, take priority. So when I say that, quarterback and line play. And their line play has been okay. I know defensively, their line it showed improvements last year, but still that could use be better. You can and also just never have enough linemen. That's my biggest takeaway when I look at team makeups. Receivers are great, but you can get a first rounder or a fifth rounder and they can ball. We've seen that. Running backs, same deal. And I know there are exceptions to that, rule. But overall, my thoughts are the closer to the ball, the more priority you should have. So cornerbacks are the furthest guys away from the ball. And take a guy number 3. We'll see how that works. I liked Andrew Thomas' pick for the Giants. I saw people that were not too happy. Well, I'll say not too happy, but were questioning that pick. I think when you have a guy who started 3 years in the SEC at Georgia at left tackle, there's no adjustment there. In that regard, you make that pick if you're the Giants who have, and I can say as a New York Giants supporter, I'll say I follow them as a fan. I grew up in New York and I still follow them. Their best teams and what they've struggled with in the most, and this is football 101, line play. They have, when they've been at their best in Super Bowl years with Eli Manning, they have had elite line play, offense and defense. We focus on the defensive side, which rightfully so. They've had, Strahan Hall of Famer and all that stuff, but their offensive line play has struggled over the past few years. And when you have a Daniel Jones, second-year quarterback, or coming into a second year, and you have a Saquon Barkley coming into his third year, who could be an all-pro running back, and you want to use his prime years correctly, you have to block and protect for those guys. And that's where Andrew Thomas, who I know, we grading it out, some people had Jarek Wills, the tackle from Alabama, or even Becton from Louisville. Those guys, they went later on in the first round, maybe a little higher grade. I like the productive side of Thomas, and I think he's going to get stronger. His technique is good. If anything, he's going to be a very good run blocker for Barkley and for the Giants, and then the passing will develop, and that's where playing in that Georgia system. Like I say, I looked at it when we covered Georgia. They run a pro-style offense, and that's going to benefit him in a major way. So we were going down the line, I think, with the first 4 picks, and I was not surprised too much by what we saw. The intrigue really started at number 5 with the Dolphins. I thought that was going to be – the smokescreens were very evident there with the Dolphins. We're hearing that they liked Justin Herbert more. We're hearing that they're trying to trade up to number 1 to get Joe Burrow. I think they were just making that movement to see some interest as far as that position goes, as far as their draft slot. But in the end, they were. I put it on Twitter. Dolphins taking Tua smart. Look, the guy arguably is a better prospect than Joe Burrow if you eliminate injuries. Now, you can't eliminate injuries in your evaluation because that's just a part of the game. Availability is just as important as your skill set, because if you're not available to play and you're injured, we can't see your skill set in its full light. But if you are not as concerned with the injuries, Tua is right there, I think, with Burrow as far as a pro prospect. He goes to Miami, an organization that I think has been wanting him for a long time. He gets to play behind Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I think Fitzpatrick will stay there for this year. I think Tua will see the field eventually. I don't think he starts week 1 for several reasons. One, I think guys are starting to, the Mahomes effect of you want a guy to maybe have a red shirt first year as a rookie in the NFL, and they come in year 2, maybe even year 3 or 4 if you're Aaron Rodgers, and we'll get to Aaron in a moment with the Packers. And then you have your guys come in and perform at the quarterback position. So I think that's a factor. And then 2, the injuries too. I mean, the guy is coming off major hip surgery. We know this offseason is going to be very different as far as preparations go for all NFL teams, just with the pandemic. And we don't know if we're going to have full training camps. The summer workouts are not like the mini camps and the voluntary camps, even the rookie deals. Those are going to be altered in a major way. So, in essence, he's not going to be able to go in day 1. And he'll have a playbook and he can study it. But to be on the field and ready to play, I don't think he's going to have that opportunity just in normal circumstances, but especially now in 2020. So you have Fitzpatrick. He's a veteran. He's been a backup before. He started. He's backup. He's not going to be in the way of Tua picking up the system and playing. So I like that move for the Dolphins, who have been looking for a quarterback since Dan Marino. They finally addressed it. They got a top 5 pick and went there at quarterback. I like Justin Herbert with San Diego, the Los Angeles Chargers. And I did say San Diego, and I think that's a factor as well. He's from the West Coast, played at Oregon. His agents, everything's based in Orange County in California. A very comfortable situation for him. Tyrod Taylor is going to start most likely as well for the Chargers. A similar situation as Tua, just what I mentioned with this offseason being different than others. So Tyrod Taylor's going to go there. He'll start, but Herbert will get his chance to play in the very near future. And that's where, did you like Love possibly at quarterback? You can make that argument. But I've been, and I do like reading the grades and the evaluations of where people are going. And they're saying, well, they could have taken someone else, or like Brown or Simmons. And those guys, I think, could be elite talents. But when you have a chance to take a quarterback who I think can be a solid starter, potential Pro Bowler in the top 10, you make that pick and you make that try to work out. So I thought that Herbert, who lacks the consistency of Tua and Burrow, and for a season, the tangibles are there. He started a lot of games at Oregon, so the experience is there. I like that move overall for the the Chargers. I know I'm saying I like a lot of these picks because I just thought that, and maybe we'll get towards the later parts of the round, we may have some dissensions or some questions, but I just think the way you looked at it, these teams were smart in addressing what they needed. The Panthers taking Derek Brown, defensive tackle out of Auburn. I heard someone say he could be Reggie White. Slow down with that. And that's where we got to slow down with these comparisons, too. Even Burrow. Uh, do I see some Brady in him? Tom Brady? I actually do. Do I see some Drew Brees in Tua? I can say that. Chase Young, I've heard, could he be a Lawrence Taylor type? I mean, possibly. But slow down with the comparisons. But Derek Brown and Reggie White, and hey, if he ends up being any half the career Reggie White had, that'd be great for all parties involved, himself, the Panthers, and us football fans. But I do like him in that spot, a guy that could play and tackle, and as I said, closest to the ball, most priority. That works out. Simmons is intriguing with Arizona. I'm glad that Arizona addressed the defense. Now, they could address their line as well. And this is where we'll probably see that maybe in the second or third round because they do have to protect Kyler Murray. That line is below average on the offensive side. But Simmons is a player, you can line him up a lot of spots. Probably you can line him up at the defend tight ends. He can rush the passer. I thought that was pretty good. C.J. Henderson, solid player. Jaguars took him number 9 overall, cornerback out of Florida. You know, I wasn't. He's good, but they have. I said cornerbacks are just so tricky to evaluate. You know, so I wasn't too impressed with that one. I thought that and then just continue down the line. Wills and Becton, the two tackles, respectively to the Browns and the Jets. You have a young quarterbacks. You want to protect them. Smart moves there. You know, solid. We'll see how that goes. Ruggs going to the Raiders. I had Jerry Jeudy and also had CeeDee Lamb kind of ranked ahead of him as far as receivers go. So if you're going to go with a receiver, I probably would have gone that route instead of Ruggs. But look, the man ran a really fast combine time, or ran fast 40 at the combine, and speed is optimal thing for the Raiders organization. We've seen it from Deion Branch to taking Jet and all Darius Harewood-Bay. We know that's their MO. We know they like to take speed at the wide receiver position. But if I was looking at a receiver, I would have gone more towards the lines of that. I know here in Atlanta, fans were not happy to see Javon Kinlaw go to San Francisco at 14, the defensive tackle from South Carolina. And that would have been an awesome spot for the Falcons to get him there because that's exactly what they need. They need help in the line in the worst way. And the pick of A.J. Terrell, the cornerback out of Clemson, kind of similar to what I mentioned at cornerback. I'm not necessarily impressed by that. I would have liked to have seen them. I know they had took two. I'm bouncing all over the place, but as far as the Falcons go, and then we'll get back to San Francisco. The Falcons took 2 offensive linemen in the first round last year, so I know they may have not wanted to double back up in that regard. But you look at their defensive line; they already lost Vic Beasley, or maybe someone say they gained something by him leaving. But he's with Tennessee now. You have Grady Jarrett, Pro Bowl player. He's been very strong at the defense tackle position. Tack McKinley at the end. He has been inconsistent. So I thought that they may have gone with a lineman there. And I thought Kinlaw was a guy that they really wanted to see. And that's another thing when you talk about these drafts is the fan bases. I think if you've seen guys play a lot, that also kind of alters your perspective of it. And that's where Kinlaw, he plays at South Carolina, who plays Georgia every single year, so you're familiar with them. I'm talking from the Georgia fans or the Atlanta Falcons fans. So you've seen him play every single year, so you know about him a lot more than a guy in the Pac-12 or the Big Ten. Just because, yes, you see him play every year, so you see him play, and he's a really strong prospect, and I like him with the 49ers who stick with their guns. We're going to pick linemen, and some more linemen. And when we need to pick someone else, we'll go at linemen. And we've seen what they've done. They have probably the most depth as far as linemen in the entire NFL, and that's led them to a lot of success, including making the Super Bowl last year. But I think when you saw that pick, that was very tough for the Falcons. And I said Terrell, talented player, Clemson, so he's played in a lot of big games, but he's had an up and down career overall. And I know they need to replace Trufant, who's not going to be with the team, Desmond Trufant. And they also kind of replaced Robert Alford from last year as well. So they needed to get some cornerbacks. And I think they're going to address those other needs, especially the line play and probably a running back as well as we get towards the second day and the third day of the draft. But as I said, would I have preferred to see him maybe take an Austin Jackson, a tackle out of USC that went a little later? I mean, sure. Maybe some a Jordan Brooks, a linebacker out of Texas Tech. Even Isaiah Wilson, the other tackle from Georgia, offense tackle from Georgia. I think those could have been intriguing picks, but we'll see what happens there as far as that goes, as far as them needing that help at other spots. CeeDee Lamb going to the Cowboys. I mean, obviously the Cowboys could they need a lot more help, especially I think on the defensive end or defensive line and offensive line. They have a lot of toys. They already have a top receiver in Amari Cooper. They're paying $100 million. So why do you need to get another receiver? I think they just went with the thoughts of that's the best player on the board. And CeeDee Lamb could be the best receiver out of this entire draft, possibly. Very productive career at Oklahoma. He's an excellent route runner. I think maybe the second best route runner behind Judy. But probably the most explosive receiver as far as athleticism in the draft. So you look at all of those options, and we think Dallas, they take a receiver when they don't need it, of course. But where else were they really going to go when you look at some of these other options as far as who went in the first round? So that pick I'm not too mad at overall for Dallas. And just going down the line, we looked at the other teams and who they took, because I'm saving the best for last with Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love with the Packers. We'll save that for the conclusion of the show. Patrick Queen, he's a good linebacker. Now, that could have been a pick for the Falcons of intrigue. He ended up going to Baltimore at 28. I think that would have been a really good option for them. And the other players, and that's when we do our show on Monday, where we have a better overarching theme, or all the teams have all their picks done, I can kind of see where they addressed their needs. But overall, as I said, outside of maybe one or two picks, I thought the first round was pretty straightforward. Now the one that's gotten the most attention is probably the lead story on all your national sports programs are the Green Bay Packers, who with the 26th pick in the first round took Jordan Love, the quarterback out of Utah State. Obviously, when you think of the Packers and quarterback, it's Aaron Rodgers, future Hall of Famer, won a championship for the team. Some would argue he's still maybe the best quarterback in the NFL, even though I think he's ticked down a little bit by his standards to maybe a top 5 quarterback. So I'm going to say top 10. Here's the pro of taking a Jordan Love in this spot. You look at Rodgers, he's over 30, he's older than 35 years old. We've seen him deal with injuries in the past. He's broken his collarbone multiple times. He's dealt with some leg injuries, just the way the sport goes. Unless you're Tom Brady, who outside of a knee injury in the middle of his career has stayed relatively healthy, that's a freak of nature. That's not going to happen all the time. But you look at all of that stuff, the guy could possibly break down and get hurt. You also have a guy in Aaron Rodgers whose numbers, once again by his standards, have declined over the past few years. He did not have a really good start under Matt LaFleur's system. He was rookie head coach this past year, going to his second year. So you have a guy entering his second year as the coach with the older quarterback This could be an opportunity to get a younger guy into that position so that when Rodgers retires or leaves, which is going to be sooner rather than later, it can happen at any time, just the way of his age. You want to have a guy there in a Jordan Love who some would say is maybe the best quarterback prospect in the draft just physically and can do a lot on the field. So you have him in the plan for maybe a year or two. Rodgers retires, injures himself out of the league, or moves on to another organization. You have Jordan Love there who's ready to go immediately when Rodgers' time in Green Bay concludes. You look at guys like Pat Mahomes. He sat out. I mean, he played that final game of his rookie year, but he sat out pretty much the majority of his first year. He came in year 2, MVP, year 3, Super Bowl champion. You look at Lamar Jackson. He sat out a good amount of his first year, but he got in there. He ended up starting for them in the playoffs, didn't do so well. Year 2, regular season MVP, and we know what happened there. So you look at it from the Packers' perspective, if you're the pros of taking a Jordan Love, that's what you're banking on, is that you have a guy in your program under a rookie contract and not paying him too much, and a comparison to having to bring in a free agent and when that rebuild does happen or that change in quarterback position happens, and then you got to either go with another rookie 2 or 3 years from now when Rodgers is gone and having to do all that, and or try to bring in a free agent that's going to cost you, $30 million a year minimum, the way the numbers are going in the NFL. So that's the pro side of taking a Jordan Love. Here's the con. You have Aaron Rodgers on your roster for the next 4 years under contract. The guy, as I've mentioned, while having those few injuries, did play all of last year, led you to a 13-3 campaign, and looked more comfortable in the offense as it went on through the year. So you have that going on. You also have a guy in Aaron Rodgers who knows exactly what the deal is because he was put in a similar position when he was drafted by the Packers when Brett Favre was there. So you already have a guy that's going to be suspicious and a guy in Aaron Rodgers who, personality-wise, once again, the guy's a Hall of Famer. And some would say the best quarterback of this generation, skill-wise and everything like that. So on the field, the guy is tremendous. You got to worry about the attitude and how he's going to respond to having a guy like Jordan Love on his roster when he still thinks he's in the prime of his career, at least the back end of his prime. You just signed him to a 4-year deal. Now, NFL contracts are not fully guaranteed. You can cut a guy tomorrow and work your way around it. But you have to figure he's going to be there at least the next 2 years, probably 3. Now, that last year is usually a year of reckoning and a year of decisions, and you go from there. But you are picking a guy in Love that's not going to see the field if all works out, and barring injury, he's not going to see the field probably for the next 3 years. When you have a 13-win squad who may be a player or two away from winning the Super Bowl, or at least making a big run in the postseason and getting into the Super Bowl, and you can take your chances there. So you add all of that together, and where do you go with this pick? I think when you're the Packers, they just took the best guy available on their board. And when you're in the latter half of the first round, more likely than not, that's the best move. If you have 2 solid defensive tackles on your roster and you're in the pick number 30 or 28 and there's a really strong defensive tackle there, all good. You take that guy and you rotate him. If you have 2 elite wide receivers and the best guy on your board is another receiver, you take him and you run through receiver sets and you figure it out. Quarterback is a different deal, though. When who could they have taken? If they took a linebacker, I look at the other guy. Could have taken Jordan Brooks out of Texas Tech or Patrick Queen, Isaiah Wilson, a tackle out of Georgia who went to the Titans. That the Green Bay is going to have to rebuild their rock. Balaga's not there anymore, so they're going to have to rebuild their line a little bit. That probably wouldn't have been a better option, I think, than taking Jordan Love. Could they have gone with a Jacob Eason or a Jake Fromm today in the second or third round at quarterback? That would have been a little bit more comfortable probably for all parties involved, because when you take a first-round quarterback, he's going to play. Now, I've mentioned all the scenarios of guys sitting out an entire year or maybe getting in this game midway through the season. He's going to play. Just like when David Gettleman, the Giants general manager, was talking last year when he drafted Daniel Jones, saying, hey, he could sit out 2-3 years and let Eli Manning play. No. We saw what happened. We saw midway through the season, the Giants, as expected, were struggling. They found the way to get Daniel Jones in there for the second half of his rookie season just to see what they got. That's going to happen more likely than not in Green Bay. And Rodgers is still at a really strong level. Eli Manning was on the decline of his past few years. But I think this is where it's probably going to end up more in the Mahomes scenario when Alex Smith was the quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is going to play this year. But this time next year, it's going to be Jordan Love's team most likely. If I had betting odds, just because of injury or the fact that they're just going to find a way to move on from Aaron Rodgers. And everyone talks about, wow, he'll never leave Green Bay. We've literally seen Tom Brady, a guy that you would think would be a New England Patriot for life. He drafted there, won all those championships. Him and the owner have an awesome relationship. Tom Brady's never going to leave the Patriots. We've seen what happens to him. He's in Tampa now. You think Peyton Manning? No way he leaves Indianapolis. Perfect market, indoors. Him and ownership get along. He becomes a Bronco and wins a championship there. It's Joe Montana with the 49ers. Joe Namath with the Jets. You go down the line, all of these. Johnny Unitas with the Baltimore Colts. You think all of these guys, Ken Stabler with the Raiders. You would think these guys would never play for another franchise because it just all works out where they are originally. And they either get traded or released or move on as a free agent like Tom Brady did. Aaron Rodgers is going to be in that same boat. So whether it happens after this year or 2 years from now or 3 years from now, I'm leaning more towards the 1 year from now, that's what's going to happen. So where do I land on that after saying all of that? Would I have taken Love? Probably not. But if you're the Packers and you see a guy that you think can be a franchise quarterback in that spot late in the first round, and the other options are some offensive linemen that may not pan out or some cornerbacks that are a dime a dozen, you take the quarterback and you roll with it and you try to figure it out. So I see both perspectives, but personally I probably would have gone a different route. But that's the beauty of the draft. We're talking now. We can't evaluate this for another 2, 3, 4 years. And Lord willing, we'll be here to discuss it and look back and have our opinions. So those are my thoughts on the draft and everything that went on last night. Thanks for listening. And we'll be doing another show on Monday after that happens. And probably talk more of The Last Dance with the Bulls documentary, recap the draft, and probably talk about what I'm watching, which has been an evolution or a change over the past few days. I was very Netflix heavy when first dealing with the quarantines and everything like that. But I've kind of gone old school television, old school network television. Also, I've been working and writing a lot more, picked up some assignments. So I've been very busy in that regard. So, Lord's been good in that regard as far as getting some work in. So a lot less TV watching than I was doing in the beginning. So when we do our next show, I'll kind of break it all down for you and see everything that's going on. So until next time, Good fight. Good night. Be safe.